Hello and welcome to the Bub Report. The COVID-19 pandemic inflicted significant economic and cultural damage to the premier cultural festival of Carnival in the Caribbean region. Most islands and territories across the French, Spanish, Dutch, and English-speaking Caribbean were forced to cancel all carnivals due to this public health crisis in 2020. The economic impact on the creative and hospitality industries has been immense, as carnivals generate spin-off economic activities in several sectors across the board. Last week, the Grenadian Prime Minister suggested that Carnival would again be cancelled in 2021, citing, yes, the pandemic. His pronouncement was predictably not well received in some quarters, with some on social media suggesting that his declaration was ill-advised and ill-timed.
He does not believe 60% of the population, would be vaccinated in time. And so, I mean, come on. If you care about people, you will do whatever you have to do to make sure Grenadians have a carnival.
His announcement also harkened back to tensions that existed last year, when some Grenadians engaged in jab-jab defiance, ignoring COVID-19 protocols to revel on the streets on Carnival Monday and Tuesday. This week on the Bub Report, we discuss the implications of a second Carnival cancellation on Grenada's creative and cultural economy, with a panel of artists and producers. Also in Grenada, industrial action continued to intensify last week by public sector unions in their demand for a negotiated 4% salary increase to reflect the current inflationary economic conditions on the island. We speak with a former trade unionist about the current industrial relations climate in Grenada and get his take on the way forward for the acrimonious relationship between government and unions. We take this time to welcome our guests: Calypsonian Finley scholar Jeffrey, soca artist Kendall Ledneck George, panist Michael Blaze Robertson, music producer Ian Charles, and Senate President Senator Chester Humphrey. We thank you for joining us for another installment of the Bub Report. A pleasant good afternoon to everyone. It's top of the midday in Grenada, and we welcome you to yet another edition of the Bub Report. I'm your host, Kellen Bubb. And of course, before we begin, in 2020, Grenadians defied COVID protocols to defiantly celebrate Carnival. It was an astounding display that left many in Grenada aghast, including some in the ruling administration. But Grenada was not alone. In 2021, Haitians also defied COVID protocols to stage an informal mass carnival event that dwarfed the 2020 Sauteurs resistance Juve activity. Over in Martinique, thousands of residents there took to the streets to revel and to protest COVID protocols on that French colony. We here at the Bub Report submit that these informally organized social events cannot be looked at in isolation. As societies, we must attempt to understand why seemingly irrational thinking human beings would behave in such an irrational manner. Perhaps we can begin our search for more detailed answers by looking to psychology. Dr. Joshua Klapoff suggests that when people sense a lack of control and distress at the disruption to their lives caused by restrictive lockdowns, they tend to fight back as a way of coping with the mental health and anxiety impacts spurned as a result of COVID 19. Further, the financial impact of COVID 19 lockdowns has left many feeling mostly anxious during this time. And so when we think of developing country context, for example, in Grenada, developing economies such as Grenada, where some citizens are less likely to be able to work remotely, and individuals and businesses are less likely to have sufficient savings to cover for losses, notwithstanding the provision that the fact that government provided relief packages to some folks. Finally, one of the biggest takeaways for me from this pandemic was the tension between balancing public health and safety juxtaposed against the need to maintain economic security. And on that note, let me take this opportunity to welcome my first guest this morning or this afternoon in Grenada, Senator Chester Humphrey. Welcome to the Bub Report. Now, Senator Humphrey, you've made several pronouncements in Parliament recently with respect to the current industrial relations climate in Grenada. Now, Senator, you were once an advocate for national strikes for aggrieved workers. In 2010, for example, you warned your then comrades in the then NDC administration and Ansa McCall that you would shut down the country if aid breweries workers were not reinstated. I'm sure you remember that, Senator. Also in 2011, you said that during the Liat dispute, quote, "We will withdraw our labor throughout the region," unquote. Now, Senator, in the current 4% dispute, the unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did. Now, why then do you oppose their current industrial action? Senator, can you hear me?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm hearing you, although
Go
you're
ahead.
coming over a bit distorted.
Mm-hmm.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate, and may I dare say a bit inflammatory and somewhat unfortunate. My position is simply this: the breweries' struggle is fundamentally different to that's 2011. It's fundamentally different to what exists now. We called a strike at the brewery, and within 4 days, the strike was finished. During the period of that strike, my union, the Technical and Allied Workers Union, which I have led for close to 30 years, and let me put it to you this way: there is not a person, dead or alive, that has called or taken more industrial action than myself. I have the fortuitous record of not losing any. But that's besides the point. I'm saying in the brewery case, the company Ansa McCall locked out the workers. So the strike lasted 4 days. We presented ourselves by way of the agreement which was brokered by the Ministry of Labor when it intervened to mediate. And we reported to work. And when we reported to work, the company locked its gates and prevented the workers for 66 days kept the workers out, and the union, of course, had to pay. Yeah. In the Bureau strike, we paid for every single day of the strike because, as a trade union organization, we were highly organized. We had a strike fund from which we can pay. The situations that you referred to, and even at that stage, when we were discussing the contemplation of moving to island-wide strike, I was called by the late Sir Royston Hopkins, who was representing himself in addition to other hoteliers. And he simply said to me, look, I will never begin to tell you what to do or how to do it. All I'm simply saying is, you have no quarrel with me, I have no quarrel with you. If you shut the country down, then it will affect my business, many of whom are your members. So I just want you to put that in the mix. We never moved to a general strike then because we got the matter resolved otherwise. So they're two completely different situations. Now,
So therefore, you
in my
suggesting
30
that,
years of trade union, well,
go ahead, go ahead.
if you want to take my place, you can because you
No,
are
no, no, no,
right.
no, no,
I'm saying to you,
but I
in
want to get you to the
my
point.
trade union experience,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm getting to the point, but I'm trying first of all because you initiated the discussion on a falsehood, which I am obligated to clarify. And I'm saying to you, in my trade union experience, let me show you similar situations which exist. In following Ivan, we had just negotiated in August of 2004 the first comprehensive collective agreement for the Grenada broadcasting workers. First comprehensive collective agreement that made provisions for a whole range of things, including pensions, and so that the workers never had. And that agreement was signed off. There were wage increases to be given, and then Ivan struck. With the striking of Ivan, the union convened a meeting with the company and said, look, we recognize the devastation that has taken place to the enterprise. And this is what we're prepared to do. If you will maintain employment, we will work out a package. We will suspend the collective agreement in which the workers are to receive pay increases in order to hold on to all of the jobs. Second situation, the world economic crisis of 2008. In the world economic crisis of 2008, we signed an agreement a few months earlier with the then Singer company, and that company awarded several percentage increases. I think it might be 5, 5, and 5% increase, or 5, 5, and 6, whatever it was. And the company was going through severe and acute difficulties because of the world economic crisis of 2008. We called the company and we said, look, because the company notified us that because of these difficulties, they can't maintain staff, and therefore they will have to cut staff. In October, November of 2008, when our trade union convened its general council, and we did an analysis of the world economic situation, we determined that a coming crisis, because remember, when the crisis struck North America and Wall Street collapsed, the ripple had not yet reached economies like ours. And we concluded that the most important task of the workers was to hold, the union was to hold jobs. And do you know what we did? We gave back to the company the increases that we negotiated. And we set in train a periodic examination of the company's fiscal performance every 6 months and review it. And in exchange, the company kept the workers employed. A sister union representing a similar set of workers in a similar sector of the economy, namely a service sector selling appliances and other things, they did not follow our lead. They insisted that whatever increase they negotiated, they must receive. The company said, okay, if you insist, I'll give it to you. And 30% of the workers went home. 30% of the workers went home. I give you the third situation. In 2012, Madonna Harford and I negotiated a wage package for public sector workers. In those negotiations, I think we got, if I'm not mistaken, I think it might be 3, 4, and 6%. I believe. I'm subject to correction on this.
And that would be for
And
the
those
public sector
increases
workers
were
at
to
the
take
time?
effect public sector workers at the
Okay.
time. It did not include teachers because teachers did their negotiation separately.
Okay.
But it included all government employees other than teachers, right? Madonna and I did this negotiation together. We signed off on the agreement, and the increases were to take effect. I believe it might have been March or January. The first installment of it was to be paid somewhere around March. The elections were held in February, and that's February 2013, and a new government came into place. At that time, the CCC, that had employed 300 Grenadian construction workers represented by our union, had shut its operations 2 years earlier. So we had about 300 workers unemployed for 24 months. Prime Minister called me and said, look, I have a problem. And here's my problem. Government is a continuum, and that I know you recognize. The last government signed an agreement for a wage increase. I think it was either 34 or 6%. Don't hold me to the numbers. I'm subject to correction on this. But here's the principle. We have a signed agreement with you, and we are supposed to pay these increases. I can pay the increases. I have the money to pay the increases, but here's the problem. The CCC, who holds a contract for construction given to them under the last government, will not begin the construction work unless a significant part of the debt which was owed to them was to be serviced. The only source of funds for servicing that debt is the money we have allocated pursuant to the agreement which we have signed. I'm asking you to give consideration, to give us some time to pay. And I said to him, Prime
And
Minister, no problem.
that would be the
At
Tillman
that
Thomas
time,
administration, yes?
at that time, no. Tillman Thomas administration had lost the election. And
Okay.
the NNP government had came. That's in 2013, in
2013,
February
yeah.
2013.
Correct.
They were to make the second tranche of increased payments somewhere in March, right? I said, Prime Minister, no problem. We are built on solidarity. We have 200, 300 workers who have been out of work for 24 months now, right? The workers that are due this increase have been working for the last 24 months. Their jobs are secure. Their payment is secure and predictable. I will go to Adrian Francis, and I'm calling names so that your listeners can check these people and discuss with Adrian of negotiating a postponement for the payment pursuant to solidarity so that that money, which will come to workers who have a fixed job, a fixed pay date, a fixed sum of pay, and who had never been out of work in the last 24 months and have been constantly at work, I would allow the movement of that money not to be paid to them, but to be paid to the CCC. So the 300 workers who have been unemployed for 24 months could come back to work. And that's exactly what we did. We went to our members and we said, look, the essence of the philosophy of the trade union movement is solidarity. In this situation, all must eat bread. Now, why I go to these experiences? Because the situation is similar. When COVID struck, an entire sector of the economy shut down. Hundreds of workers and working people went on the breadline. We had taxi drivers. We had vendors who were selling the things because no tourist ships were coming. No, the airport was closed. No planes were coming, right? Everything was shut down. Government, as you know, collects most of its revenue on cross-border activity because most of government's revenue come from taxes at the port, right?
And Senator,
With all
yes,
of these sectors of the economy closed down. Let me finish making my point.
Well, I think you were
with all of these
filibustering there.
systems goes down.
No, Senator,
No,
let me
well,
get
look,
let me get hold on, Senator. You're making I get the context and the background, which is important to understand.
yes.
But now you are also couching this debate. It appears to be on a question of parity and solidarity by suggesting that the
Well,
unions in this period are
well,
tone deaf.
I don't look.
Are you claiming that they are
No,
tone deaf,
no,
Senator? Go ahead.
look. I am capable, Mr. Bob.
Yes.
I'm sure you're aware I'm quite capable of formulating and expressing my own thoughts. And I would not allow you to run an interview in which you put words in my mouth.
No,
I will
and
say
that is
precisely and
not the
exactly.
intention. That's
Well,
not
so
my
give me
intention.
the opportunity. Give me the opportunity. As I said to you before, the only reason why we are remanding is because you started with a false assertion. And I had to clarify that. So I'm saying to you, I'm showing you now where the situation today is similar.
Okay.
And all I'm saying to you is how a trade union is. And let me say to you, I reached the height of the trade union movement. I was twice elected General Secretary of the Caribbean Congress of Labor, unopposed, without any opposition whatever. And I could have continued in office on appeal by a number of the affiliates, but I believe that my time had come to do something else. So just let me make that point clear. So I'm saying to you, now we are faced with a situation in which the situation now is worse than Ivan. Because in Ivan, you had countries which were not hit by a hurricane and could help. Now you have a situation where the largest economy in the world, look at the relief budget that has just been passed in the US Congress, a massive, unprecedented sum of money. Look at the amount of debts. Right? Look in the United States, in England right now, aircrafts are not leaving to go out. So we are faced with and the government has lost a significant sum of its revenue. I have heard that it is 50%. I have no way of establishing that that's not true. So I'm not going to get into a numbers game. I think it
So,
is sufficient to say
right.
for any
Mhm.
objective observer to realize that the state, and not just the Grenadian state, but throughout the region, have lost significant sums of revenue. Entire sector of the economy has come to halt. And that's a
Yes,
fact.
and
Who
so,
helps these
Senator,
workers? The
correct.
state
And
has
so,
to help these workers.
I
So,
understand that,
what
Senator.
is the
And
employer
so,
saying in this context?
right.
What is the employer saying in this context? Let's understand what is being said. What is being said in this context, and I want to take this into consideration. In the early phase of the pandemic started in 2019, but we got the real effects somewhere around March 2020 when we had to take certain steps. During that period of time, if you were not an essential worker, so for most of the public service, except those who were essential workers, most of the public service remained at home. They remained at home. That means no work is getting done, but they were paid salaries and paid it on time, right? They they got a 4% increase in January of that year. That was not altered. And interestingly, while the workers were at home, through no fault of the workers at all, I'm not blaming workers here. Let's be very clear on that. I'm not blaming workers. I'm not holding them responsible. I'm saying, and factually, during the period of time when they were home and when they were receiving their salaries paid on time, while other workers were receiving nothing or a significantly small portion of their salaries, these very said workers were earning annual vacation leave. There's never been an adjustment or suggestion by the employer that we make an adjustment. So while you are at home, unable to work because of the pandemic, but receiving full pay, you were treated as though you were reporting to work and you were earning annual vacation leave.
Okay,
Now,
Senator. So let us take
let
a
me
pin there.
summarize
No,
now.
okay.
Let me summarize now. Let me
Quickly
summarize
summarize
now.
because
I'm
we have
saying
to
to
get
you,
to the next question. Yes, please.
yes. So I'm
I know
saying to you,
brevity is not your strong suit. Mhm.
in that context, it is not unreasonable. It is not unreasonable to say, look, I have a limited source of money which has been significantly cut. I am asking you to consider, because I have to help the LEAT workers who 35 years are working with the company has gone belly up. Not a single cent has been paid to these workers. I have hotel workers now who are home. I have vendors. And now you just played a clip of the Prime Minister saying, look, given the state of where things are and this pandemic, we will not have Carnival, but I've asked the Ministry of Culture to meet with those critical persons who make a significant income in Carnival, to talk to them to see whether or not, I'm assuming, I'm not speaking, I can't speak for the government on this, but I believe the intention there is to tell the other individual artists, well, look, we know you can't perform, but the government is going to give you some kind of assistance grant. I think that's what's in the mind. No, you
So,
have to spend money on
Senator, you have
PPP.
summarized, but we're almost out of time. And so the final question
Well,
that I want to get to is this. Remember, our agreement was that you were going to be here for the first segment. We do have to get to the second segment. I would
okay,
actually love
fine.
to have you back. But so, in essence, your theory is that in the context of the current industrial relations climate in Grenada, that your former colleagues, who you represented so valiantly
They're
over
still
the
my
years.
colleagues. They're not former. They're not
Yeah, well,
former. They're
okay, well,
still
I
my
mean, well,
colleagues.
you're no longer a trade unionist, Senator Humphrey. You are not that was your former
Well, that's not
position.
strictly true.
Well, I mean, okay, well, let's not split hairs here.
But
But
anyway, let's not split
so
hairs
yes,
over it.
correct. So you couch your this argument as a debate in parity, suggesting that the unions are tone deaf, based on what you just said, to the dire economic
No,
conditions
I,
faced by other
I'm
citizens.
coming back. I'm
Senator, let
coming
me
back to
finish.
you
Let me
again.
finish. No, let me finish with
Sure.
my question, please, and then you will get a chance to respond. What then do you expect the unions to do, especially given the fact that
Well,
the 4% wage increase was a good faith agreement with the current administration in the first place?
no. Well, I gave you three expressed situations in which a signed collective agreement, given increases in the face of the given scenario, uh, and then I was leading the process at the time. I'm not leading the process now,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm saying to you that based on fundamental principles of solidarity, if an employer says to you, in the context in which we are speaking, and in the context in which this is unfolding, that look, my revenue has been cut substantially, right? I have obligations that I must meet, not by virtue of the fact that I have a legal compulsion to help these people, but morally, they are citizens. They are looking towards the state for help in a very grave situation. All I'm asking you to do is to hold a while. I will pay you. It's not that I won't pay you. I
So,
think that that's listen to me. I think that that's a reasonable request. And
mhm.
if I was still in the trade union movement, I will go to my members and persuade them to go along with that request.
So therefore, your thesis is that
I don't have a thesis, I have a position.
well, your position is, which
Yes,
could also be construed as a thesis, Senator,
yes.
given your current position, that perhaps there has to be more flexibility on the part of the unions, then, that they're not being flexible in this current climate. I think
Well,
that's
what I would say is this, and I want to choose my words very carefully because this is a very emotive issue. I have given you my life experience and I've showed you how I have acted. And
Mhm.
I've showed you how, at the end of that acting, all the beneficiaries came out the better off. And I'm saying to you, there is a sufficiency of good reason, is a sufficiency of good reason to give the employer the break which the employer is seeking, because the employer is not seeking that break. Let me say something to you. Between 2008 and 2013, not a single cent in increase was paid to public officers. There was no demonstrations on the streets. There were no picketings. There were no placards. Not a single cent of increase was paid. From 2013 to 2018, over $110 million was paid out to public officers. Right? Not only this, the state gave up significant revenue because today, if you are receiving severance pay, you pay not a cent in income tax, because I was able to negotiate and get the government to amend the income tax law to remove income tax. And let me tell you, remember, Everything over $60,000 is 30%. So in the case of a Liat worker who have been working 32 and 33 years, if they were to get severance pay and the law was still in existence, that worker can be expected to pay the state all up to $90,000 in income tax. The state gave up that money back to the workers. Yes? And I am saying to you that it is reasonable. It is reasonable to comply. And unfortunately, and these are my words now, you could quote me, I think a lot of ego is being traded for good
You are
reason.
speaking. You are
That's
speaking.
my
As,
view.
you are speaking as Chester Humphrey, correct, and not as not parroting
Absolutely. I
talking
can't
points
speak for the
of the
government.
ruling administration. Okay, all right.
No, but I have told you what I've look, but you see, that's why it was necessary for me to
Mhm.
give you my history. Because in 2008, this current administration was out of office. It was the NDC that was in office. And I showed you what it is I did in practice. In
Mhm.
practice, I gave up wage increases that I negotiated in exchange for saving jobs. We have a
Okay.
situation here now where hundreds of workers are without income. Sometimes the entire family has lost both breadwinners. The mother is out of a job, the father is out of a job, and there's no prospect of a job for the child that has just left school. They are looking towards the state. Somebody has to help. And I'm saying,
So,
those of
Senator,
you who have a job, those of you who get paid every month at a fixed date every month, all right, and get paid, plus you get your increments. All I'm saying to you, it is not unreasonable to give the employer the break that the employer seeks. And I don't care whether that employer is government or private sector, so that that employer can help other workers who are less fortunate and in a more dire situation than you. I think that that is reasonable. It is humane, and I will say so quite openly. And
and
I'm
you
saying you
as
can
you
quote
have
me on this,
as you have in
and
the
you can
Senate.
quote me on this.
Yes,
I think
that would be.
reasonable, responsible leadership, right, has been replaced by egotism. Simply
Okay.
put, that's just
Well,
my view.
well,
And
that
I
that
will
is your.
upset many with it, but I'm on the
Well,
stage.
you would given your former role in the
And
trade
it
union
has
movement.
absolutely,
I remember
let me tell you,
vividly,
and
Senator.
it has absolutely nothing to do with where my politics is.
Well, of
Because I
course,
showed you where my politics
but
was.
Senator, you speak of
Yes.
egotism. I remember clearly when you lay down and prostrate, well, not prostrate, but you lay down in front of the truck in the breweries when we're talking about egotism. But that is a
Well,
conversation for another
no,
day. That is a
no,
conversation we
that
have
was
to
not
get
the
to.
case. Remember, the riot police came in my absence because I was signing a collective agreement for Nawasa workers, and I had to
Mhm.
sign that agreement in time for them to get paid before Christmas. So I was at the Ministry of Labor, so I was absent on the picket line. When the riot police were released on the brewery workers, they were beaten, and then the trucks were able to leave. When I got the message that there was violence unleashed on the workers, I am a leader. I don't lead from the back. I've never led from the back. I've always been a leader's place is in the front. So when I got on the scene and I saw the trucks coming out, as a leader, I can't tell my workers stand in front of the trucks if I'm not prepared to do it. So I went and lied there to stop the trucks. Because remember, at that stage, the strike had ended and the company had locked us out, had locked the workers out, right? Had locked the workers completely out. And the workers were not able to report to work. And they were bringing up workers from Trinidad to do certain aspects of the job. So I reimposed the blockade by myself going in the front of the battlefield, not in the back. So it's not just ego. It's not just ego. And I can tell you this, we were very successful. Not a single worker lost his job. We paid strike pay. We got the increases we were demanding. And today, the profit sharing for brewery workers is about 5 months' pay annually.
Senator, on that note, we have to get to the next segment, but we do have some follow-up conversations. I remember my mentor, the late great George Grant, your neighbor in Tantine. You guys were
And
having some discussions around. Let me finish, Senator. You guys were having some discussions around the publication of your book. So whenever your book is published, I would love to have you back. I know that George wanted to get you to answer some pointed questions, but I promised George that I would be following up with you on that conversation. So, Senator, can you give me a commitment
Well,
that you will come back to the book report?
No, no. Well, Kellon, you can call me anytime.
Yes.
I am still engaged in public service. So anytime you need, anytime you wish to have me, I am available unless there's some overriding circumstance that prevents me from coming.
Well, certainly.
But what I will not allow you to do,
yes.
What I will not, and I mean, you know me better than that. What I will not allow you to do is to put words in my mouth.
Well, that was not the intention. That was not the intention. The intention was no, Senator. I will defend myself and defend my work. The intention was to lay bare your record. But that is a conversation for another day. We have to get to the next segment. Senator Humphrey, thank you so much.
My record is an
It's an open book.
My record is an open secret.
and that is why. But that is why I think people usually have very impassioned views about you when you appear on these platforms. So, Senator, thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and thank you for your public service.
Well, all the best to your listenership. All the best to your listenership. And thank you for having me on your program. I'm available at a call.
Okay.
Once
all right,
there are
Senator.
no extenuating circumstances.
All right. Thank you again.
So good evening.
Right. Okay. Folks, stay with us. We'll be right back with the panel for today's program.
Preparations began for Carnival 2020 in Toronto, I would say 2019 November. That's when we started dealing with our theme, sourcing designers, making sure all our section leaders know what's going on. And then we started talking about designs and, making sure everything is streamlined. With Carnival being canceled this year, it affects us as a group because there's a lot of people that look and depend on this. Take aside the fun aspect of it. We have a lot of temporary staff who we pay. A lot of people look at it as something that a little extra money in their pocket. Emotionally, it'll take a huge toll because not everyone can go to Trinidad Carnival. Not everyone can go to Jamaica Carnival. New York is right next door. It's a drive. Michigan, the States in general. A lot of people drive over here. To Toronto. We can't even postpone it because we only have one warm season. It's canceled till the following year. So like different carnivals have the ability to postpone to a different time of the year, but they have warmer climates.
Start with the city in general losing money a lot because it's, as we say, I think is over $400 million that it brings into the city. Hotels and the all these places like restaurants and all these places, the events, the parties, people that normally count on that is going to hurt from start to finish. It's going to affect everybody, and the dollar figure is going to be crazy. I can't even put a number to it. It's emotionally, it's going to hurt everybody.
Welcome back, folks. That was a clip from Toronto, Canada, in which some of the stakeholders in that country were discussing the economic impact of Carnival. And Carnival is much more than the artistry and the revelry, which is important. It is a key element of Carnival, but Carnival is also about a lot of the backstage elements that bring the festival together that generate significant economic activity. And so we know that this week, Grenada's Prime Minister made a pronouncement that he doesn't think it would be a wise idea to have Carnival in 2021, notwithstanding that Grenadians are being vaccinated, but also notwithstanding that we still are in the throes of a major economic crisis, and we are also in the throes of a particular deadly and dangerous pandemic. And so let me take this opportunity to welcome our guest for the second segment, for the panel segment of the Bub Report, Mr. Ian Charles of Jambalassi, Grenada, Michael Blaze Robertson, who is representing the Steel Pan fraternity, and two artists here. I have Ledneck, Mr. Meat, welcome, and
Welcome,
Scholar,
welcome.
Brother Scholar, also welcome to the Bub Report. Gentlemen, it's such a pleasure to have you. And we really want to kick it off because this is a conversation that we wanted to have you on the Bub Report for a long time. And so I want to begin. I want to begin with Scholar and Ledneck. And so concerning the cancellation of Carnival last year, what was that like for you? What impact did that have on you as artists? Ledneck, I would start with you and then I will go to Scholar.
The cancellation of Carnival last year, it had a negative and a positive impact, right? I would start with the negative impact first. We as artists, even if we have jobs, apart from doing music, we also count on music to sustain us financially, physically, emotionally, but financially is most important because we need that in order to continue our daily living, right? So this is the way it affects us. Remember, we don't have shows, right? Also, we we don't have events where our fans can come together and appreciate our music. So that means that affects the spreading of the music, right? If there are no events, no parties or anything, so that is also an issue, right? It hinders us, our music, sorry, from spreading. Also, the just we as artists performing for our fans, it brings joy to us as artists, right? And the fact that we cannot get to perform for our fans, that would somewhat put us at a negative state, sorry, right? um Also, what else? A lot of different negative ways that the whole pandemic affect us as artists. I could go on and on. It will take the whole day, right? So let's go to the positive side now. The positive side of it it is good for that time for yourself as an artist, because artists are public figures, right? A lot of stuff that we do in our circle, it goes out. It is discussed among fans and people, so we get that time to more be with our families and the people that matters most. It's not that the fans doesn't matter. The fans, we love the fans, but there are people in our circle that we really need to keep that connection, and that's what the pandemic did. It forced us to be more amongst our family and do stuff amongst our family. So that's the positive side of it, if we're talking about how it affects us. Also, um we also get the chance to get more ideas, new ideas, because sometimes I feel like the ideas in soca is limited, the topics are limited, what we use to create music is limited. So we get that time now to generate new topics that haven't been heard before, right? So if you notice, even down in the meat is a new vibe, even if it's within the elements of soca, it still have a new song to it. So that is what that pandemic did. We get more time to bring new vibe across the board. Um, I, I I would leave it like this for now because
Okay.
as I said before,
Yeah,
if I really talk about it, we will go on and on and on. So
yeah,
these are
Scholar.
some of the
So,
stuff.
Scholar,
Yeah,
let me bring you in, Scholar. I know you're watching the football, but thank you for coming on. Don't ask me how I know that.
I want that. I want that.
Don't ask me how I know that.
I got to do for you.
I'm a journalist, Scholar. Remember that. Yeah? Okay. All right. All
And
right. So tell,
you know I'm a football junkie, you know.
I know that.
Right.
Yeah. So tell us what has been for the Calypso fraternity as well. And I mean, I know that Calypso has already been struggling as it is in terms of that audience reach. The Masgra crowds have continually dwindled in the Masgra, and so I'm sure that perhaps that was a death knell last year.
Well, definitely, and Ledna could have touched on some of those things, the financial aspect, which is it goes without saying. I mean, there are plenty of people who ply this trade. This is what they do. This is what they depend on. Every carnival, they know that they can put their pot on the fire and turn it down, or or turn down the pot that there will be some revenue coming in, right? So it is something that we anticipate. It is something that we wait for. But also, you have to understand that we are creatives, and creatives will create regardless to what, right? And so even before the pandemic would have hit and really had us in its grips in March, the creatives had already done what the creatives are good at. The creatives would have started to create. Some would have had songs and everything already. That's what we do, right? And then to get this thing now that there will be no carnival, definitely it would affect. The fact is that, and I've heard you in your early piece, you spoke of trying to find a counterbalance between public health and also between the economics.
Mm-hmm.
But I also would posit that there has to also be that counterbalance is a three-way thing also between the social aspect, because I do not believe for 1 minute that when God made man, he made us to be in this kind of way, sheltered and cocooned, and as you said, locked down. There is a social aspect. Man by nature is a social being. He's a social animal, and he longs for social interaction, for interaction with others, species just like him. This is a natural, normal thing. And so, Carnival, by its very nature, is one of the events that brings out probably the most the social side of the human being. And when this is missing, when this is taken away, you will find that often enough there will be this kind of rebellion, like we saw in Sotes and so on for the carnival with the job and what have you.
I believe you guys were
I
called
believe
demons up there.
that when you call them demons up there, it was probably the social demons acting out. So really and truly, the whole lockdown would have adversely affected the artists, adversely affected soca artists who were sort of better. Because if you think about it, Ledneck spoke about coming out with dung in the meat and what and you. The soca artists still, they created, and there was still a little platform or avenue for them to place a virtual thing, which is not enough anyway. They would have felt it. But the Calypsonians, the pure Calypsonians, really and truly, there was nothing, nada, zip.
Mm-hmm.
There was just nothing. And I
And,
know that was
let me bring Blaze into the mix and Ian as well. Ian, I know that you with Jambalasi Grenada and you do some really good work in so far as documenting jab culture in Grenada, which I think is so critical. So both of you gentlemen, what was it like last year? And then what we want to do, we want to segue into, well, perhaps the announcement that was made by the Prime Minister and your thoughts on that. But Blaze, I'll begin with you. I mean, for PAN, I think PAN makes for social distancing. I mean, would you agree?
You're talking about a very scant audience,
Yeah.
like with Dimash. But seriously, it was like it was a very difficult time for us last year. One of my biggest concern with the cancellation and everything is, how we go about maintaining the interest, especially of the young people. We already struggling, with all the things that we are competing with to keep their interest, all the other things they have to do, and the way we struggle to keep them coming to the panyard, and with the lockdown and they not being in the panyard and not having access to the panyard, how we maintain that interest. We already, we lost an entire year. This is March. We were closed down since March last year. And then to not have a carnival again in 2021, it's going to be a really struggle. And, it's something, Steel Pans and the Steel Pan Association would have to become very creative, in terms of how we maintain that interest, how we keep people, especially young people, coming to the panyard. So I guess when we segue into the 2021 part, I'll show him a bit, but the real concern for all bands has always been, how we maintain that interest for the young people, the Steel Band.
Ian?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, let's look at this thing holistic. COVID-19, a world crisis. It's all about the risk management. And like I told you guys in the backstage, this is a very complex question because the cancellation of Carnival last year and this year, you guys touched on the economical effects, the social effects that scholars spoke about. Also have cultural effects as well. But when you sit back and you do the risk, how do you manage COVID-19? Because the new variants, they're even more infectious. So you have to look at it holistic. And I think this gives us an avenue right now to be creative in terms of how you express and how you express the culture. Like what we did last year, we actually invested in immersive space, which was a jab house, which literally brings the sights and songs of Juve to the streets. And with that, you have some merchandise selling and whatnot. But when it trickles down to the wire benders, the calypsonians, the producers, the mass candle leaders, everybody who makes a dollar from these events is rough. And Carnival is like a collateral damage of what's happening right now throughout the world. So it's a very complex something. I know the government is in a very tough position. I know we, the stakeholders, are in a very tough position. But I think it's time like we need to come together, all the stakeholders come together and say, hey, this is what's at stake. This is our avenue. This is our medium. Let's get a couple of things going. The virtuals, I know, wouldn't be the same as, okay, being together as one on the streets and being in parties and whatnot. I get that. However, I think we could merge with the private sector. Take some of the burden off of, take some of the financial burden and some of the economic burden off the government, because I think the Prime Minister said that they wanted to speak to critical stakeholders to see, how they could maybe come up with some kind of aid package. But let's be honest, these aid packages will have some level of criteria you have to meet in order to qualify to get aid, one. And two, the amount of money, let's be honest, monies don't really grow on trees. So the amount of money you might get, yes, it might block a hole, but this is a second year that you don't have your bread and butter. So I think we need to literally have creatives come together and have try to come together and get some things going. It's been rough for us, tough for us. And I've been previewed to some information that next year, seeing that if everything goes pretty okay, next year should be a better off year than this year, with the vaccinations going on and the new protocols and whatnot happening. But as for now, we need to come together and literally use what we have and make a stand. Everybody's hurting economically, socially, and culturally. and we cannot go that long without having any sort of carnival.
Michael, a question, and Ian brought up a point about that financial support, which the Prime Minister hit on in his press conference. But I'm just curious, last year, did the stakeholders, mass, pan, calypso / soca artists receive any subvention from government, or was that a moot point because obviously there was no carnival?
Yeah, no, there was not anything. Nobody received anything, as far as I know. But at least I can speak for Pan, right? I don't know about Calypso and Soca and anything like that. But it was a real struggle, especially for the bands who have been functioning at the hotels and so. Since March, we've been shut down, as you know. So some of us, especially the bigger bands in town, who perform 3-4 nights at the hotel, that has disappeared. With the absence of Carnival, the smaller bands in the country who would benefit, their biggest income earner would be like the Panorama, the National Panorama, Junior Panorama, Bomb Tune. That has disappeared. So since March last year, all earning has ceased for state bands.
Ian?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so let me bring in Scholar again. Scholar, concerning the subvention question, there was no financial support from the state.
No. There was none. There was absolutely none. Because it's understandable because there was no carnival. So because of that, but I want to also get back to and touch on what you Ian was saying and what the question you'd asked, because in terms of this year, I must say that while I expected it, I did not expect that the announcement would have come so soon. I expected that there would be some kind of evaluation or the other. That being said, you don't want to be in a position of leadership right now because there is no blueprint really as to how you manage this crisis. There is no blueprint. There is no best practice. And really and truly, when you look at what has happened throughout the world, the truth is that Grenada has done well thus far, right? So that balancing act had to take place. And so I expected somehow that there might not have been anything. Now, while that being said, I do not know. I heard the pronouncement made by the Prime Minister. I did not get that what he was saying was that he is looking at some form of support for Calypsonians. I did not get that. But if that is the case, then great. Because this would be very, very welcomed. And we'll have to work out some kind of framework as to how this would happen. You see? But in line with all of this and the fact that we did not get the subvention last year, my thinking on this is that when we do not have Carnival, as we did not have last year, and probably this year, that we would now use that lag time, that siesta, really to focus on the product, to focus on capacity building, to focus on development. And I would have expected that Spice Mass Corporation would have led that charge and would have done a lot in terms of development so that when we come back in 2022, as Ian would have mentioned, that something bumper would be in the pipeline, not just in terms of how much money is being splashed about, but also in terms of the product and the organization and whatnot. And we have not seen that. And I have not heard anything from Spice Mass as it relates to that. I have not heard anything about bringing Calypsonians, their writing skills, the musicians, the nothing up to scratch, the judging of pan, judging of calypso. I've not heard anything really. And so it sort of makes me pause because what I'm wondering is that while we did not obtain the subvention, is it that Spice Mass received the monies that they do receive to maintain Spice Mass in 2020? And would they be receiving it again this year? And if they are receiving it and there's no Spice Mass, there's no organization of Spice Mass, then as far as I'm concerned, it's a waste of money. And maybe what I'm saying might be very, very harsh. But as far as I see, if there is no Spice Mass doing anything, then we could as well close down Spice Mass. It will save in terms of rent. It will save in terms of salaries, the monies that you have to pay people for doing nothing. You have telephone, you have internet, you have water, you have current. It will save money. And then, of course, Spice Mass gets a subvention from government. I'm not sure if I've seen it in the estimates this year of revenue and expenditure. But if it's there, then as far as I'm concerned, if there's nothing and Spice Mass is doing nothing, they are wasting money. That money could better go into to helping us, the creatives and the pan and the so on, so that we could develop ourselves. So that when we come back, we could come back with a bang.
I see Blaze, you're nodding, and I'm going to bring in Lednick on that conversation as well, concerning what has been happening, the developmental aspect of Carnival. I remember in preparation for this show, I was looking at a webinar that was hosted by the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and they have had several development sessions for artists in Trinidad. I can't speak to what has happened in Grenada, but I think that, Ian, you want to jump in and add to what Scholar was saying there?
Yeah, so two things I want to touch on. First was the timing. One of the questions was the timing, the Prime Minister, in terms of the Prime Minister saying the cancellation of Carnival. Mm-hmm. For me, the timing was okay because we'll have to invest in the product. So I'm cool with the timing being in February because you don't want to, okay, well, you might have Carnival, so March, April, May, you're still investing mentally, physically, financially, and then bam, July or end of May, like, hey, there's no Carnival. So from me, in terms of what we do and what we want to put out, I'm cool with the timing.
So in essence, your thinking is it reduces that kind of ambiguity that might exist in the minds of the population.
Yeah, it's cool on my behalf. I could understand someone want to come and, spectate and be part of the revelry, no problem. They could wait maybe until end of July, no problem. But with me, we have to invest and we have to get things going, produce songs, link up with artists, link up with studios. It's okay timing for us. Mm-hmm. As it relates to Spice Mass, I know over the past couple of months, at least I've been on 2 workshops, virtual workshops with them in terms of, but this was more so for a Spice Mass product. And they're trying to push Grenada's Carnival to a level in which the product is A1. And I must say, being a Grenadian and listening to the report from a regional marketing group, I was very, very, very proud to be a Grenadian because the insights that they're saying that we have literally the most bumping Carnival right now, and we need to bring it up to a level in which is of a standard product. So at least on that front, I know they've been doing some work on that front in terms of the product. I'm not sure in terms of the workshops for the judges, the calypsonian and songwriters. I'm not 100% sure, but I know in terms of pushing the product and having the product at an international level, I know some workshops and some works have been done about
that. Blaze, I'll give you a chance to respond to that concern that Scholar raised.
Yeah, in terms of like my idea of any subvention or any funds going off to artists and organizations and so, like I've been raising my membership and I've been telling them, I would like to see anything that has to be invested in the development of, the overall package rather than, like say, you give a steel band, let's say $2,000 or so. To me, it doesn't make sense. But let's develop, let's check on steel band who may need a band house to be upgraded, a steel band who may need some instruments, the development of new arrangers, the development of, I would rather see anything that is going to be invested now for 2021 would aid us in having a better Carnival 2022 and a better product 2022, rather than just handing somebody some money to say, well, you're trying to help them upkeep a lifestyle or something like that. Let us invest in the product, and everything Scholar said, I totally endorse. We should be seriously focusing on judges for pan, judges for calypso, writing skill, arranging skill, billing of instruments, all these things. These are the direction. So at the end of the day, 2022, we're supposed to see the value of that investment and not just we throw some money around for 2021 to make people happy short term.
Lincoln Depredine, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to this, Blaze. Lincoln Depredine saying many of the development initiatives in Trinidad are pushed by the various stakeholder associations. For example, last weekend, Pan Trinbago hosted an amazing virtual show of the major big bands. It was well produced, technically and otherwise. Blaze, would we have a virtual panorama this year?
Well, the Stephen Association will certainly look into something. I must admit that we are one of the associations who did 2 events during the whole lockdown. We did an event on St. Paul's Court and we did a tribute to Peck. It was well received, especially by your external audience, because we did it virtually, did it online. It was well received. We even raised some funds through that method, and we were able to give bands a little something. And then in December, if I'm correct, we did Pan, Pork, and Sand, or Pan on the Sand or something like that. It was another virtual event. We had a bit of a limited audience, and it was also well received. So the Stephen Association actually did 2 events during that 1-year lockdown period that I'm speaking of. And I know the association is having a conversation about doing something again. Absolutely important, like, earlier I spoke about maintaining the interest, especially of the young people. So it is critical and it's very, very important that the Stephen Association continue to do some work to keep that interest and maintain that interest.
Let me bring in Ledneck here. Ledneck, this year, well, last year we had some virtual events in Grenada, but I think a lot of the virtual events really took off in the context of Trinidad and Tobago's Carnival. As a soca artist, how do you perceive, what do you want to see happen for Spice Mass in 2021, given that we're not going to have a traditional carnival, it seems, at this point? You need to unmute your mic there, brother. All right. I think
All right, you
he's.
hear me now?
Go
You hear
ahead.
me
Yeah,
now?
go ahead. Go ahead, brother. Yes, go
All
ahead.
right. Yes. So the cancellation of Carnival. What I would want to see, right? Now, let me start off by saying we are at a very technical part, right? We have something that is, affecting the whole world, not only locally, right? It's affecting the whole world. So I could understand why the cancellation is being said by Dr. Keith Mitchell, Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell, sorry. I could understand why he made that decision, right? I just wanted to clarify that part. No, the fact that we at a position where we cannot do too much, we have enough time, right, to get something bigger and better in 2022, right? The music is actually speaking for itself right now. Remember, we do not have an industry, and Grenada music is one of the most played music outside of Grenada. We are the thing now, so it means that whatever need to be done to upgrade our culture and our music, we have enough time to do that now. All right. Now, what I would like to see, I would like to see a bit more effort put into the competition when that place open up. I think even if the amount that we get, is reasonable. I think the type of performances that are carried out by the artists, for the past couple of years some has been exceptional and others has been mind blowing, right? If you look at the Boise and the Killer and so on for the past couple of years. So I think whatever is being paid to them artists after performance should be a little bit more, when 2022 is here, right? That's one aspect. The other aspect is the pushing of the music, getting that the music to be, more heard outside of Grenada, not only Trinidad or states or Jamaica or regionally. Talking about places, there are places in the world that we don't know of that where music can reach, right? South America, the Asia, you know, even on even if you could reach to Antarctica, we would like that, right? And think about it. Just picture this, right? We are actually creating waves without an industry. So if whoever, we don't know who is there that can get the job done, but whoever it is that are behind the scenes, copyright, whatever, we need to upgrade everything. Must do that, because if we can't stand on our own without an industry, imagine if we do, right? So I would like to see all these different aspects develop. Competition, you know, the artist should get a hefty sum, right? And I'm not saying that that won't have happen magically, right? Given the fact that we have time now, we have enough time to put things in place. So when the place open, we don't have to worry about that. And even if when the place open, we don't get that done, we have the future to really think about, you know. And I'm not speaking to only the people that are in charge of that part of it. You know, I'm speaking to everybody. Yeah, so um more income for performance. I guess respecting the artist and the art form more. I'm not saying that they don't respect it at all, you know, just showing that level of respect. I want to bring up respect because we have Killer that created history in
In
Trinidad,
Trinidad and
right?
Tobago,
And
yes. Mhm.
yeah, and I think that, you know, I mean, the respect is given to him, but I don't think that it is broadcast a certain way that it should, right? Remember, he created history. So I just bring up that example just to show you how much the music is speaking, and because we're not just speaking, we are also acting. You know, we need everything else to develop. A better income would require better performances, better visuals. Remember, all these stuff, there is a cost, about $2,000 to get song and video. You know, to get top quality is even more. So if we want top quality stuff from artists, we need top quality um income and top everything top. We need everything top. Competition outside, you know, copyright, whatever it is that can put us to another level, we need it. So now that we have the time, we need to do that now, so that when the place opens up, everybody are happy.
That that is food for thought. Gentlemen, stay with us. When we come back, we will wrap up. But I will play this clip that I found from Trinidad and Tobago's University of Trinidad and Tobago, in which they recently had a development session with some of the stakeholders down there with respect to what the way forward would look like for their carnival once their borders are open and once things return to some semblance of normalcy. And we will attempt to see how we can have the same discussion around development of Grenada's own cultural product as well. So stand by, and we'll be right back.
So in terms of the borders, in a nutshell, the world may be opening up in January 2021, but is Carnival in February 2021 realistic for us? We need to see how the Ministry of Health guides us, national security. It could be that we look at a carnival later in the year, maybe in July 2021, for instance. So we may need a few extra months to sort of see what the social distancing looks like, how the virus vaccine is coming along, that kind of thing. And then, of course, the final point is that there could be an increase in the demand, a pent-up increase in demand, because all the other Trinity-style carnivals for 2020 were cancelled or postponed. So there may be pent-up demand for somebody to sort of attend Mecca again, whether it be February, probably too soon, or July in 2021. Next slide, please. And in terms of how we've been marketing Carnival during COVID and post-COVID, of course, for the time being, since March, we've been looking at that sort of inspirational, nostalgic approach, as well as educational approach. So we would have partnered with Carla, the Business of Carnival, for the YouTube series. And then our general positioning in social and digital was positioning the Carnival Mecca and sort of increasing that yearning and that desire to come as soon as we open up, or come virtually. And then, of course, what are we doing about our citizens? So our first levels, as would have been mentioned earlier, is a sort of local carnival that could be opened up to the regional market as well. And by doing that, a lot of the community-based carnivals may play a greater role from a product development standpoint. So the carnival could actually move out of the Port of Spain-centric approach into the smaller cities and communities and their carnivals, so that you have a more intimate event, so the social distancing is a little better managed. And then, of course, there's focus on the Caribbean diaspora, because they'll be opening up sooner than, say, the US market. And then we, of course, obviously moving away from that traditional media approach to the digital media approach, which, of course, would be an obvious move.
That webinar was, I believe, from earlier this year, the earlier part of January, at the time when, of course, Trinidad's premier festival was cancelled. And so I'll bring in the entire panel here just to get some final thoughts and comments from you. Scholar, you made a very salient point earlier with respect to that development, but I think also, don't you think that some responsibility needs to be held on the part of the creators themselves, to ensure that they are also developing themselves?
Kelon, I am glad that you asked me that in closing. Very, very, very happy. Because there is somehow that notion out there that we are not developing ourselves. Look at Ledneck. I remember Ledneck was a little fella. Ledneck is right down. Right? People didn't even used to listen to it. Well, look where he is now. You think he didn't develop himself? There is always that notion somehow that Calypsonian soca artists, we do nothing. We just sit on our laurels. Now, there is always this thing where we compare. Mm-hmm. We compare Grenada's situation to Trinidad. And there is no problem with that, because Trinidad is in Mecca. But when you're comparing, you must never make false comparisons. Now, let me tell you, when I entered into Calypso in 1993, we had a Calypso association, which was one, and I blame Calypso in that way because of the fragmentation. But the Calypso association was the one who held the Soca Monarch. The Soca Monarch was ours. That was a competition that generated revenue for us. The Calypso Association then had all developments. We did NCCDC, whatever the C it was, never developed nothing. We took from our own money. It tells you that it is important to allow Calypsonians that leeway so that we could be self-sufficient. Now, this is what we are not seeing here. Now, the Soca Monarch was taken from us. So Spice Mass now has the Soca Monarch. They have that revenue stream that we had, that all of it went, most of it went into development. Up we came, we decided, all right, let's have the Groovy Monarch. That again is taken from us. So really and truly, when you think of Trinidad, right, and I know of what happens with Tuco, and the amount of monies that is pumped into Tuco as an organization, let me tell you, it is just as someone made that analogy, and it's a good analogy. You have a child, right? You will invest in the child. You will give the child money, pay for the education, pay until there will come a time when the child becomes self-sufficient and the child can then stand on her own. What is it that Calypsonians are getting? People, I always hear the notion as though they expect Calypsonians to go somewhere on the road and burn chicken and sell nuts and so on to see if we could make our money, because then we could help ourselves and this is a notion that I do not agree with, totally disagree with. We do not now have the means, because every creative idea that we have come up with in the last 20 years have been wrestled from us by the powers that be, the soca monarch that could have generated something so that we can develop. And I dare and I pass it and I tell you that if we again come and we develop something, they'll take it again from us. Once they realize that it's viable and it's making money, what do we do? And so I've looked at that Toro, everybody making mention of Trinidad and whatnot, and that we should be like them and so on. We were the standard bearers at one time. The Calypso Association, when Calypsonians became sick and so on, the Calypso Association was who spent money to pay for their hospital bills and so on. We were at a time when we were doing this, right? When we had the soca monarch as a viable thing that we ran. All of this has been taken from us, right? And the final point I want to make before I close and before I give up, because I hear what Blaze is saying about the pan and Ian is speaking about, and I want to congratulate Ian really because he's in a position where he has seen what Spice Mash has done. I do not doubt him because the truth is that I know Spice Mash had a conversation once looking at Carnival and how do we improve the product, and they did not purposely did not invite the Calypso Association. They invited other people, so maybe they know who they're inviting, but I have never been invited or whatever. But we have to think of the soca artists. The soca artists, and the idea is that the same thing that was said about the hotel people who lost their job, and so you wanted to do something for them, and so on. It's the same thing with a lot of the soca artists. That's their work. You cannot compare it to pan and to whatnot. That's what they do. What about all of the bookings that they had all through the years that have been cancelled? Let me tell you something, and we like to talk about Trinidad. Let me tell you something what Trinidad did. Because I got Trinidad gave to the artists, yeah, all of the bookings that they had. Once they could have guaranteed that they had proof that they had the bookings, Trinidad, they honored them and they gave them something to ease the financial burden based on the bookings that they had. We had bookings with Court Island and so on for Carnival, and they sent forms for us to fill to say that yes, and we would have paid him what and what, and they were able to get monies from that. So do not for a minute look at Calypso and art and soca artists and compare them to anybody else. This is a livelihood. That's how they make money. Just as the people who work in the art in the soca industry, just as the teachers are balling now for the 4% and the public workers, that's their livelihood. Don't compare.
The Ledneck, I see you giving scholar chorus, as we say
Scholar is my boy.
in local parlance.
Scholar. I must say big up to Scholar, man. Every time I hear Scholar speak, I have to nod my head, because Scholar has been, nothing but a mentor to me. But we won't go too much into that, right? What Scholar said, I totally agree, right? What we have is something special. Don't compare us to no one. Scholar, I agree? Right.
Fully agree. Yes.
Fully agree. So I personally believe, Bob, that I don't think we fully understand the type of artists that we have here in Grenada. It's just genius we have here, and not only on the soca field, Calypso field. When you listen to Scholar and them, these guys' lyrics are out of this world. Soca, genius type of instruments and lyrics and melody patterns and so on. We even have good dancehall artists in Grenada here as well, reggae artists. So I'm just saying that to say that the type of music that we produce here, I personally find that it surpasses all the other Caribbean islands, right? In terms of quality, style, and so on. That is because of, I guess, I don't know where it comes from, but I guess it's just something that we inherit, from the past, something from history. But I'm just saying all this to say that we have everything that we need here in order to develop as a people, on the cultural side, sorry, and whatever that is there around Carnival, and bringing the music to another level. We have everything here. We have everything that we need here. All we need to do is just come together, honestly, make the right decisions with businesses concerned, and move into a level where everybody can benefit. It's not impossible, you know. Scholar said almost everything that I want to say, so I won't say too much, but I just wanted to say that we have everything here. We have all that we need. So all we need to do is just come together. Whoever decide to come together and get this thing to another level, Spice Mass, government, whoever it is, all we need is just to think positive and start putting things in place so that everyone can benefit. I heard Scholar mention the way the things are being taken away from Calypso. It is clear, it is also there to see, it is clear that Calypso is the foundation of all of the cultural part of Grenadian soca, and right now Calypso is not even being respected. You know, Calypso is something like you just hear and all right, well, a man sing a two tune, you know, yeah, good lyrics, ting ting ting, we will go the match gra ting 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 and dice it. No. And soca music is no longer a seasonal thing. Soca music is now all year round thing, is an annual something. So why still have it in a hole when it's no longer seasonal? Why still, you know, I don't want to say show a level of disrespect to the Calypsonian, but why not give them what they deserve? You know, why not give them what they have shown us? They didn't talk it in. They didn't just talk this thing. Scholar and them, they just talk this thing. Jamo and them didn't just talk this thing. That guys that come Specky as well. All the other old school artists, they are the root, you know, of this growing thing. And I don't think that whoever is in charge are showing enough respect and gratitude for what these guys did.
All right.
Right. So yeah.
Lednek, that was very profound. Thank you for appearing on the program today. And let me get some final comments from Ian and Michael as we wrap up. Ian, you go first, and then I'll get Blaze. You need to unmute your microphone there, brother.
All right.
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So I want to just touch on a few things. Lednek, I heard Lednek, and in terms of the intellectual property. Now, one of the aspects of the workshop was intellectual property, also with the commercialization and also the marketing and branding of Spice Mass. I mean, if you want to get any sort of copies from it, you could go up on the Caribbean Development website, and I think Spice Mass is going to have it up on the website pretty soon. But how I actually got to know about the workshop was by going up on Spice Mass's website, and I also got an email. So I'm saying all this to say that, you know, seeing that 2021 is already canceled officially, I think stakeholders, everybody come together, and like the Trinidad thinks that stakeholder self-reliance. I think we should come together, maybe link with the private sector, like Flo, Digicel and his people, and come up with avenues in which we could get some level of income coming in. And also for next year, I urge every stakeholder to check out the report that was done. I think it was done by a regional marketing firm, and what their findings are very, 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 very encouraging for Grenadians, especially Grenadian stakeholders. And like what Lednek says, we have the sauce right now. Grenada has the sauce right now, and the branding and the commercialization and the strategies are in place. Once the government, I really hope the government gives it a go, I think Grenada Carnival will be literally the best show on earth. You know, so a couple of more months, let's get it going. Let the pan people work together, the producers work together, the mass people work together, Moko Jumbi, Jab, everybody work together and kind of showcase and give the world, because we could also use this time to also showcase core elements of Grenadian culture. because there are a lot of misconceptions about the origins of jab and all different sort of stuff. So once we have the platforms, like the social media platform, the virtuals, we could use all that to showcase a lot of our indigenous stuff.
But I think it's important, and that is a cause that I have, and I'm very passionate about. There has to be a cultural studies course taught in high schools.
Yes,
Okay?
legacy programs.
There has to be. And I'm sorry, I know that a lot of schools, I may offend some people, but so be it. A lot of the schools in Grenada are parochial schools, religious schools. They may not allow it, but we are fundamentally, our culture is fundamentally part of our identities.
It is.
But that's not my soapbox. I'm not. You guys are the guests here. Blaze, let me give you an opportunity to wrap up here. You need to unmute your mic there, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, 2021 Carnival has been cancelled. So be it. We now have to look forward to 2022. The good thing with Grenada is that we're so unique. We have 2 carnivals. So we don't have to sit and wait until August. We have a carnival in February. So planning and all the thinking should be placed on, first and foremost, Caracou's Carnival, where we should involve, everything, all the trappings, have a panorama, have soca monarch, including the Grenadian artists, and not make it so territorial as to say Caracou Carnival for Caracou people alone, but a more inclusive Caracou Carnival. And the good thing is, we can safely compete with the Trinidad Carnival around that time, because Caracou has a unique selling point as being the safest place in the world. Mm-hmm. So let's push Caracou Carnival. Let's forget 2021. We know, it's over, but let's look to February 2022. We don't have to wait until August. And government, SMC, the artists, the stakeholders, we should start, having that build up now to February 2022, and then culminate in August 2022 with 2 major and 2 massive carnivals. I think, like I say, we are uniquely poised because we have those 2 carnivals as compared to any other country in the world who have to wait. Like Trinidad cancel this year, they have to wait until February. But we have 2 carnivals to look forward to. So let's just make it happen, all of us.
Yeah, but perhaps Caracou would be, the welcome back for the rest of the world into Grenada, and that's an excellent idea. Yeah. On that note, panel, stay with us. We will end the program, and I just want to have a quick word with all of you backstage before we leave. I will not keep it too long. I know I took away from your lunch and your other social activities. But again, I thank you all, Ledneck, Scholar, and everyone and Senator Humphrey earlier for appearing on the Bub Report today. And folks, next week we will be having a conversation around the Grenada Revolution, but we'll be extending our conversation to talk about the legacy of the revolution in the context of the current economic challenges Grenada and the Caribbean continues to confront. We also know that the trade unions are having elections in this period at home, and so we want to get some of the trade union activists to come on the Bub Report to talk about the election and the current industrial climate that we are witnessing in Grenada at the moment. On behalf of my producers and on behalf of everyone who helps put the show together every week, let me thank you all for joining us for what has been a very, very interesting and spirited discussion today on the Bub Report. I take this opportunity to wish everyone a pleasant week. Bye-bye.